So welcome, Sam, to episode 4, Eat, Sleep, Business by Plus24. This week we've had a couple of requests to talk about LinkedIn. And I think it's a hot topic. There's lots of people offering advice about how to use LinkedIn, lots of LinkedIn specialists and some non-specialists also spouting off some tripe. So yeah, I thought today we could just give a few pointers on how to go about using LinkedIn. There's a lot of people, surprisingly, who still don't use it, and there's a lot of people, probably an awful lot more people, who are on and just listen. And I must be honest, I'm slightly guilty of not using LinkedIn effectively myself. So this is a case of do as I say, not as I do kind of advice. But yeah, so Sam, obviously, I think we need to hand this over to yourself. But there's a topic that I want to cover first, if possible, on LinkedIn, and you can probably guess where I'm going to go with this, and it is the bullshit element. And so I just want to offer my advice about not getting too bogged down on what you see. Firstly, not everything that people post on LinkedIn is true. And I've personally seen a lot of crap being posted recently. Some in the form of, oh, business is brilliant, I'm absolutely killing it, we're making a fortune. The risk of taking that on board too much is exactly the same risk that you've got on all social media platforms, where you can start doubting yourself and thinking, oh, flipping heck, if they're finding it so easy, how am I struggling so much? And I just don't think it's necessarily true, and you need to focus on yourself more than you do on what other people are saying, because like I said, most of it's absolute crap.
Yes, some people are just really good at spinning, aren't they? At the end of the day, so they get one little bit of good news and spin it into the biggest news story of the year. And like you say, if you were to go on there, if any small business owner kind of goes on LinkedIn and sees this stuff about other people smashing it and having the best month ever and stuff like that, chances are, like you say, it's absolute rubbish. And you've just got to keep doing your own thing, keep focusing on what you're working towards. Don't really take notice of all this other stuff people are spouting, I suppose.
Yeah, and I think that it's the same on any social media platform, isn't it? You can't take what people say to heart too much, but I think because LinkedIn is seen as that business sort of platform, it's almost like everything people say is gospel and true, and so that's the first bit of kind of what people are saying on there. The other bit is there's some really terrible advice being put out there, non-experts telling you how to do things, and it really worries me because some of these people gain a lot of traction with some of the advice that they're giving, and so therefore my second piece of advice would be to do your own research. Don't take it as gospel and simply act on what one person has said. Somebody who's had a real positive influence in my life is a guy called Jim Rohn, dead now, obviously. I'm sure lots of listeners will have heard of Jim Rohn, and if not, you need to get on YouTube and start watching some of his stuff and download some of his books. And one of the things that always stuck in my head is that he's a massive advocate of research, and he said you make up your own mind as to whether you believe it, but you must do the research. And so it was referring in those days to books and the fact that not all books should be listened to, word for word. You need to read it and form your own opinion of whether it's correct or the right thing to do. And I would advise that because it's so easy for somebody to put a fleeting comment on LinkedIn, get a few likes, and it gains a bit of traction. And all of a sudden, you've got this following that are going completely down the wrong way. And actually, some of the advice also might be good for one scenario, but not good for another. So, yeah, that's my second piece. And I'll move on before I get a bit too ranty, because this is not a ranting podcast. um,
No, because I
so
suppose ultimately it's great that more people have been using LinkedIn.
yes,
And obviously, as COVID hit and people got furloughed or businesses, quieting down or whatever it was, LinkedIn seemed to be the place they turned to.
yeah,
And the stats have shown it. I think just in across April and May, LinkedIn usage was up 55%.
wow,
With engagement, across with people's connections just shooting up.
hmm,
And a lot of people, were sharing their story, and it was good to see kind of the community come together as people started helping each other and supporting each other
yeah,
through it. 'Cause a lot of people hit the same challenges. But I suppose now we've just, come into June, businesses are starting to reopen or get back to some kind of normality. People are coming off furlough. So it's switching again now, as those people that have used it for the last couple of months are now coming back to work and wanting to get more business out of it.
hmm,
So obviously a month or two ago, we could have advised people to be sharing more educational content, and a lot of people switched to like educating their audience and trying to teach people how to do certain things, whether it was how to use LinkedIn or whether it was, how to set up a CRM, whatever it might be. So loads of people have used it for a useful kind of exercise over the last couple of months, but now it's how you can switch to using it to grow your business again, ultimately. But it's
yeah.
also got a lot noisier in that time.
Yeah, it has, and some of the things we'll talk about today is cutting through that noise. But yeah, I guess irrespective of all the crap that is posted on there, there's still a massive, it's still a massive tool and really important. And that extra 55% in usage just highlights how important LinkedIn is or can be for a business in their sales and growth areas. So yeah, and it's not all crap. I'm talking about a minority, and just asking people to be aware. But so let's talk about LinkedIn from a sort of a proactive business perspective, whether it's sales or raising awareness or whatever your strategy is for using LinkedIn. Firstly, Sam, how can people cut through the noise?
So I think for people that haven't spent a huge amount of time on LinkedIn or haven't kind of been active very much, um, everyone defaults to selling. And it's the same when you go to an offline networking event, but everyone defaults to just going on there and like trying to sell their stuff. And that's probably the worst thing you can do on LinkedIn, because not only does LinkedIn not like it, so you're not even going to get shown in the newsfeed too much, but people don't engage with it. That's not what people are there for, to be sold to. So in terms of cutting through the noise, I'd say it's a simple tip, and there's more to it, but it's offer value to people.
Mm.
Inform them, educate them, give them some value up front, and it's the ultimate. Going back to the basics of content marketing. So similar on every platform, but offer value to people rather than trying to sell to them, and build that relationship so that they want to buy from you instead of trying to force it down their throats. So I think cutting through the noise straight away, just delivering that good content. And we've seen that with some of our clients that have had more time to dedicate to things. They've produced so much more content and educational stuff, explaining, kind of giving their knowledge away for free. And a lot of people are still hesitant to do that. But the fact is that if you're not willing to do it, someone else is. It's all on Google at the end of the day. It's just whether people are going to watch your content or someone else's. So yeah, offering that value, I think, is a massive thing, and obviously, video plays a big part of that.
Yeah,
People
I
are
was just going to
still,
move on to kind of what type of content to put out there. So,
yeah.
so video then. So, is that the most important content, or is it just one of a package of content that should be posted? Or
So statistically, it is. So engagement rates show that video is the most engaged form of content. So again, if you were to take that as one rule, and you're saying do your own research, people would listen to that and just start pumping out video. But the fact is, if it's just some crappy video you've done on your phone that's like, really poor sound quality, some people will advocate, just produce any piece of content. Doesn't matter how bad it is, just do it. But the fact is, everyone's done that now. So maybe a couple of years ago, that was good advice. But everyone's doing those crappy phone videos these days. So I think you have got to keep improving and keep trying to be the best. You
yeah,
don't have to be the best, but try and be better than other people at the end of the day.
So I can see that from my Stalker usage of LinkedIn, where I'm just listening and not posting enough, and you must start slapping me on the wrist, Sam, to get my own usage back up to the levels it should be. So I'm seeing, like you said, dozens and dozens of video being put out there, and I scroll past 99% of them.
Mm.
And I suppose you're right in the sense of don't just post any old crap on LinkedIn. You know, don't just pick up your phone and say, "Hi, this is my first video. I've been told to do more video on LinkedIn, so here I am. Here's my first one," because you're not offering any value to anybody. And the only people that might enjoy that sort of video is actually your friends, and they're not the ones that are going to buy from you
Mm.
usually. So I guess you're right. It's the type of content. I agree in the sense of, you know, the quality of the video and the sound. If you can improve that, that's good. But what would you say to the people who don't have the facilities to do more improved video, or access to an agency like ours where we touch up videos and sort the sound quality and put a nice intro and outro? What about those people?
So if there's no way, I mean, there are tools out there to help you. So there are ways to just improve the stuff you're doing on a phone and things like that.
Right.
And you can buy a 10 quid mic off Amazon. So there are really simple things you can do to get to a good level. It's not going to be the best video you've ever seen, but it'll get you to a good level just with a 10 quid mic and, you know, a iMovie or something on your phone. You can do the basics and that'll get you to a good level. So if video is your chosen route, then there's stuff you can do to make sure it's good enough. But again, I think a lot of people get hung up on the fact that I've been told video is the best thing or statistically it's the best thing, so I'm going to have to do video. But at the end of the day, if you're really awkward on camera and you can't really present and it's really scripted, you read enough notes and your video comes out awful, the video isn't the format for you. Like,
Right.
unless, yes, statistically it gets the most engagement, but if it makes a poor piece of content and if you're never going to get there and you're never going to be comfortable doing it, find what works for you. And I think that's the most important. Don't just follow that one piece of advice that you've seen on LinkedIn, like you said. Find the best piece of content that works for you. If you're a brilliant writer, you're obviously going to write more stuff. You
Yeah.
know, some of the best posts on LinkedIn are just pure text posts because
Yeah.
they're written with a really catchy opening. Then it lures people in to click read more. And then you've hooked them and they can read your life story on LinkedIn just in a written post. And
Yeah.
that can do 10 times better than any video if it's written well. Equally, if you know you've got some nice imagery, depending on what your business is. Obviously, if you're selling like visual products or something like that, you're going to go down the visual route. So at the end of the day, find the best form of content and the best type of content that works for you, and do that. And just do it well. Whatever it is you choose, do it well, and that'll help you stand out.
Yeah. And I suppose it comes down a little bit to your audience as well. So, like you said, video is a really important form of content on LinkedIn. However, your audience might not want video from you. So, if you're a copywriter, for example, you know, show off how good you are at writing through a really well scripted post. I guess that's what you're saying. So, um, how regular should people be posting? We're talking about video and types of content, and that's great. But, you know, a lot of people get hung up on a lot of things. The first one we've identified there is somebody said use video and how video can help you sell millions and millions of pounds on LinkedIn. So you get hung up on that first. What about how often you should post? That's a question I get an awful lot.
Yeah, and again, I think it's one of those things that people do get hung up on, kind of unnecessarily, because if if I was to say to someone to post every single day, they'll get hung up on that and they'll just start ticking boxes to post every single day. But if it's rubbish content, then it's not going to do very well.
There's a bit
There's
of a theme
no,
coming here, Sam. You're
yeah,
asking people to stop publishing crap content, aren't you?
pretty much, yeah. But I mean, some people post every day and absolutely smash it, because they've got like a great story to tell or they're keeping people up to date with stuff. I'd say on a basic level, you know, a few times a week, 3 times a week, um, is reasonable, and I think you'll do well statistically if it's decent content. The algorithm, you'll do all right in it, but it keeps it consistent, and I think that's the important thing. Whatever you do, don't do it where it's just once and then you drop off for another 3 weeks and then you're back again to do a little spurt, because all the time you're winning points with the LinkedIn algorithm. Basically them saying, yeah, that's good, and you just need to keep feeding that to keep up there. Otherwise, you've constantly got to go back and try and win more points with LinkedIn to get shown to people.
Yeah. Well, let's just talk about that algorithm then, because I think a lot of people still believe that if you post something on LinkedIn, all of your connections are going to see it at some point in their feed. But that's not actually true, is it? So can you firstly, what is the LinkedIn algorithm and how does that sort of affect the content that you're posting? And then secondly, how can you make it work for you?
Yeah, so each social network has its own algorithm that basically decides what content to show and who to show it to. And stripping it back to the basic level, you are effectively ranked by each of these social networks. So LinkedIn looks at your profile, looks at how many posts you share, how often you share, how many engagements you get, and then decides where to place that in the newsfeed. So if you're Gary Vaynerchuk, for example, you're the most popular business guy on LinkedIn, for example, every time you post, there's a really good chance that that'll go to the top of someone's newsfeed, all your followers' newsfeeds. But even Gary Vaynerchuk doesn't go to the top of everyone's newsfeeds, because LinkedIn knows that you interact with every single one of his posts, so it's going to show you all of his posts. I haven't interacted for the last 12 months, so he doesn't even appear in my newsfeed. So it knows what kind of content people want to see, and it shows them that type of content. So yeah, most of the time you're not going to get seen by a fraction, half of your contacts.
I think you've just hit a nail on the head, and another reason as to why you shouldn't just post any old video. That video that you post where you say, this is my first video, please be kind, and all of that all of your friends like, means that all of your friends are going to start seeing your content, but your target audience isn't. And that goes back to the value of the content as well. So if you're posting valuable content to your target audience, and that is the real key, solving a problem for the audience that you want to work with, if they engage, then they are more likely then to see your content moving forward. And so that's why, I guess, the quality of the content and making sure you're adding value to your specific audience through whatever content form that is really important. And if you're just getting 20 likes every post and you think, oh wow, I'm doing really well because I'm getting 20 likes, but 19 of those likes are just friends, family, or close associates that aren't in your target market, then it's a wasted effort, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's digging down to see who you can provide that value to, isn't it? And then you're using the algorithm the right way. And it shows that, yeah, posting a few times a week, keeping it consistent, you'll do all right in the algorithm. It actually shows that if you post more than once a day, your reach massively drops off on the subsequent posts. So
Right.
it's not about quantity necessarily. It's about consistency and quality.
Okay.
So yeah, definitely just 3 times a week is a good starting point for a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, and like you said, you don't need to put a figure to it, but if you just set yourself the goal, that's a reasonable amount, isn't it? To not take up so much time that it's it's going to start affecting your work, but enough to start having an impact on the algorithms and the people that want to see your content. But anything else, or should we summarize those kind of those tips?
I
And
think that's a good starting point for a lot of people. There's so much more that you can read up on and YouTube videos that you can watch. But yeah, I think that's a good starting point for a lot of people.
Yeah, and there is a lot of advice out there, and despite there being a lot of crap advice, there is some great advice out there, and a lot of people offering it out for free. So do look for that advice, but just be aware and take it with a pinch of salt. I don't think it's one set way works for everyone. And I think that would be the key message for me, is that, as you've identified, you need to do what works for you. There's no point following somebody's advice if you can't do it well, like you said, or if that's not adding value to your audience. So my advice at the start was to cut through the bullshit, do your own research, and make sure that you're not influenced by some of the crap that you read. I can almost guarantee that 4 out of the 5 people that posted that they were absolutely killing it actually aren't. So there's my advice. And for you, Sam, do you want to just summarize those top tips from Social Sam?
Yeah, so always offer value, like know your audience, know what content they're looking for, and provide that to them, ideally in the format that they're looking for. So if they want to digest it in a certain way, read a blog or watch a video, do that. But ultimately, don't do something that doesn't work for you. So if you're going to be uncomfortable on video, don't force yourself to do it. Find the content that works for you, stick with it, and be consistent, ultimately.
Cool. And I must admit, I prefer long form reads than I do video. And that captures me on LinkedIn more than it does video because of the sheer volume of video and the fact that I've become bored of watching shit videos.
And I couldn't, you don't have time like to sit and watch that video all the time. So the video might catch your eye, but I always click on the blog and save that for later to read when I've got more time. So definitely worth thinking about how people are going to digest it.
Yeah, awesome. Cool. So I think that's us for this week. I hope there's some value taken away from that. Like we said, we've had quite a bit of positive feedback, so I'm delighted by that, and I look forward to getting some more requests on what topics to cover. Quite happy to cover controversial topics as well, but I'm going to steer clear of any political stuff. I think that would be a wise thing to do. Sam, what do you reckon?
Yeah, it's not for this podcast, I don't think.
Nope. Eat, sleep, business. If it's business related, we'll talk about it. Cool. Right. Thanks for listening, everyone. See you next week.
See you later.